Hey guys, and welcome to an epic showdown between two mighty warriors. On the left hand side, representing Sons of the Mountain, we have for Poland, and he's going to be up against his clanmate Chad Forak, as the Dino boys do go toe to toe up against the Dowie folk. Should be a good, fun, interesting game. It's quite a fun matchup in general, but it looks like these guys were in a custom game, going to be experimenting with some ogre units. Ogres all round, for the most part, tend to not be super cost effective. I think the Mournfang Cavalry, as well as the Ogre with dual weapons, as we can see right here, can actually be pretty decent. However, these ones in particular being rather cheap, and it looks like the Lizardman player has brought a few in there and kind of swiping out Crocosagore, moving in the Ogres, which is a smart idea because the Ogres are significantly cheaper than the Crocosagore. So I'm rather interested to see people's thoughts after this game of if Ogres should be included in tournaments or multiplayer scene, maybe with a cap so you can only have 2 Ogre mercenaries, for example. But anyway, on to the battle. We have red-crested skinks on the flanks, basic skink cohorts in the front line, which would normally be a horrendous idea up against the Dwarfs, particularly in a front-line engagement, but their main mission is to absorb the initial damage and allow these Ogres with dual weapons to saturate on top of them and really start dishing out the damage. Ogres with dual weapons, though they don't have the great weapons on them, still are armor-piercing anti-infantry, and look how happy they are just to get a day out in the sun. Yay, we're finally getting used in a multiplayer game, and they're going to be absolutely loving it. We also do have 2 Bastillons with the Ark of Sotek, a very powerful centerpiece now to any good Lizardman build. Because of the changes and the fact they have Sotek's poison now, they are far more viable. We have more red-crested skinkies in the back line here, including the Regiment Renown, the cohort of Sotek, and on the far right-hand side we do have a unit of Raised-on hunting packs, which I quite like as an inclusion. Yes, they are a little bit squishy, and dwarf cannons and so forth will be able to tear them apart, but your opponent's probably going to want to deal with all those ogres, and therefore leave the Raised-ons to run an absolute amok. We do have a Skink Priest, a Beast down here with Flock of Doom as well as the Curse, a good little tool set indeed. And that looks like it's going to be basically it for the build, apart from the leader, Oxyotl, who I've got mixed feelings about in this matchup. Some players would tell me he was very good against Dwarfs, but he never seems to pay for himself. But at the same time, the Dwarfs won't be very good at killing him either. His magic damage really a kind of downside in this matchup in particular. For the Dwarfs, we have miners dotted all the way along the front line. Looks like some of them were even silver chevroned up, but maybe that's just the ones on the flank there. And we have Norgrim's Ironbreakers on the left-hand side, supported by Rangers with great weapons, double Bugman Rangers and Slayers, a lovely little contingent on the left-hand flank. Bugman Rangers in the centre, Slayers, more Rangers, as well as the Ulfares on this right-hand side. So you can see the Dwarf build is really centred into 2 major pockets, and a third one as well as a bit of a distraction. We have more Slayers in the back line here, and we actually have Grombrindle. I did a video recently on Grombrindle, and my thoughts on him, thinking that he's probably the worst Dwarf Lord in the game currently, because of how costly he is, and at the same time having lost his Flash Bomb and all other good abilities. The Ogres will be crashing in now, charging ahead of the Skinks and slamming into those miners. They're going to do some pretty disgusting damage across the board, but the Rangers will be able to pepper them down. They only have 40 armor and a rather large target. So you can see some good micro straight away, though, coming in by the Lizardman player, ignoring the front line where possible and driving forward with the Ogres, using their superior mass to start hunting down the Rangers and the Ulfar Raiders. But the Slayers are pretty swift in response here, going to be hopping top of the Ogres and dragging them down, but there's a lot of Ogres for only 1 unit of Slayers to deal with. In the front line, we can see the Curse has been popped. That's going to allow the cohort of Sotek and the Skink cohorts to really grind through the miners rather quickly. Left-hand flank, though, has been absolutely pummeled. The Dwarfs definitely getting out to the better side of this engagement, shattering 1 unit of Ogres, driving away all the Skinks, and now applying a bucket ton of pressure to the Razordons, who do need to try to turn away and run away as quickly as possible. But the Ark of Sotek is now into the back line. Right-hand side going far better for the Lizardmen, though. It was quite a nice little flank overload. The majority of the Ogres were on this side, although a lot of them are being held back now. Slayers doing a relatively solid job here. We also have Marked by Ulfar going down, but once again, good micro by the Lizardman player, moving these Ogres around. No, they're sticking in one engagement for too long, and trying to hop on the ranged units. You can see the Ark of Sotek, though, will be able to grind through the Slayers, which is actually quite a cool utility of this big beastie. Often people will bring units like Slayers to counter it, but now it can actually counter Slayers back when at least it pops its buffs. Skinks are pushing to the back line to try to shut down Bugman Rangers, something they will struggle with a little bit. Bugman Rangers actually relatively decent melee combatants, but it will stop them shooting, and that's the main thing. We have some Slayers looking to surround the Bastillodon, who is again ready to drop those sneaky little snakes. You can actually see them sliver across the grass, which is such a cool little animation, which I absolutely love. and the Slayer's going to be taking quite a pounding from that all round, but Grombrindle is nearby supporting, should be able to drag down that Bastiladon. However, the Razordons have now been forgotten, and they are rear shooting into the Norgolem's Ironbreakers, which certainly is a juicy target indeed. It looks like some Buckmans are trying to counter-shoot, but are now being overwhelmed themselves by the Archosotek and the Red-Crested Skinks, though some Rangers with great weapons are still vibing in the back, applying some of that pressure. Right-hand side of the battlefield has been completely cleared up now by those Ogres, as well as the remainder of the Skinks, chasing down the Ulfar Raiders, finishing off these Miners, and then swooping around. The balance of power slowly edging in the Dinos' favour, but the White Dwarf still stands strong, basically full health at the moment, and when he pops his buff, the Ironbreaker's melee defense is going to be absolutely insane, meaning this Archosotek, though it is a big powerful beastie, probably isn't going to be able to connect terribly often. On the charge, however, with the support of Red-Crested Skinks, yeah, that's going to do some really nasty damage. And it looks like we do have Grombrindle Has No Fear pop down on these guys. The Curse, though, coming in as a bit of a counter punch. And in the back lines, the Rangers have really been hunted down by these Ogres. Quite a swift unit all round. With 54 speed, they really can burst into your back lines quite well. We have even more Ogres as well returning to the battlefield on the right hand side, but they will be meeting Slayers. Slayers have certainly done a good job so far today. Skinks darting in to shut down the Buckman Rangers, who are doing some really nice Overwatch fire into this main blob, and you can see the White Dwarf twirling his axe over his head. Vengeance, vows of vengeance being ripped from his lips as he defeats one of the Archosotek, now going after the second one. Not a bad day by him. Oxyotl completely absolutely fine with Master Predator popped. There's basically no dwarf units, which you can be able to catch him and stop him. But at the same time, I don't think he's going to be doing too much of an impact on the battlefield. Skink Priest himself is having to get down and dirty, charging into the back lines on these Rangers. That's probably a bad call by him. He's certainly going to get sliced and diced, but it is going to stop them shooting at least a little while longer, and buy time as well for these Red-Crested Skinks to come over and assist him with a well-placed Flock of Doom as well. Good play there by the Lizardman player, who's really driving into the heart of the Dwarf resistance. Over in the distance, we do have some Skink cohorts who can once again return to the field, as well as some Skinks down here. And it looks like those Buckman Rangers will be getting shut down by the cohort of Sotek, such a sticky unit. One of the Archosoteks, which nearly got slaughtered by Grombrindle in hand-to-hand combat, has managed to rally here, and that's very good news for the Lizardmen. Grombrindle still giving as good as he gets here, but he does get rammed down onto the ground for the first time in a while. Oxyotl is shooting into him, which for the main part is really good to be applying that poison. As you can see, the poison is still, pretty decisive. Minus 15% on all of those stats is really going to help the Archosotek try to claim victory. And we have the Max and Barbs, or not Max and Barbs, sorry, the basic Razordons pouring in that fire as well. Ogres coming in the rear. Grombrindle may have seen his last day. The double arc of Sotek once again proving that the meta certainly has shifted, at least for the Lizardmen forces, where these glorious beasts can do some good work. The Ogres were very good today as well. Some of them getting obliterated, but bringing 5 units in, they managed to overwhelm the Dwarf defences, and it's only a matter of time now, I think, before the White Dwarf does indeed get dragged down, and another grudge shall be added to the Great Book of Grudges, both to the Lizardmen people and to the Ogres themselves, because surely there's no way Grombrindle manages to pull this off. He's getting danger low, but not before maybe dispatching one of the Archosotek. That's just 500 HP, barely clinging on, but likewise with the curse pop down, Grombrindle's taking huge damage now. Those Ogres having an absolute whale of a time up against him, and it seems like he may indeed finally fall, and the legend of the White Dwarf shall go out with a whimper. Although he's had a pretty good day, I think, actually. Pin up a decent fight, hacking and slicing his way to meet his ancestors in the afterlife. He's done the Dai folk proud all round. I think the Ogres in general did very, very well in this matchup. And I think it's a bit of a problem for Dwarfs Ogres coming into the game, but at the same time, they've got plenty of anti-large tools. Basically, you just have to shoot them. Well played to these two champs, though, for Poland and Chad Forek. I get a lot of replays from these two guys battling out up against each other. Likewise, Sergeant Spaghetti, and all of the Sons of the Mountains guys tend to be really friendly people and dwarvish experts. So I'd like to hear their opinion on this as well. Do you guys think Ogres should be brought in to the multiplayer scene? I think... And tournaments as well. I honestly think having like a cap on them, but being able to bring 2 to 3 units of Ogres would be completely fine. Yes, some matchups would change, and change can be scary, but at the same time, it gives even more variability, different tactics you can use, a little bit of utility. For example, the Dwarfs themselves can get cavalry, which would be absolutely hilarious. So I'm all for it, but I would like to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below. We will get into the damage dealt and damage value of all of the units, including those ogres, to see just how well they performed. But if you guys did enjoy the video, make sure to leave a thumbs up, subscribe for more Total War Warhammer content going into the future, and do comment down below, what you thought of the ogres, but also what you thought of this matchup. Simply yell quack at me. I really do enjoy reading all the comments. They are very inspirational, but at the same time, please be nice to each other in the comments and to the players. Be respectful, of course. Constructive criticism is always welcome, but just, be sensible, basically. There are links down below as well in the description to my Patreon, where you can support my channel, as well as my Discord, where you can submit replays to me, just like 4Poland did here, and have them featured on the channel, get involved in tournaments and events I host, and chill out with a load of cool people. But on to the damage dealt and damage value. Oxyotl, 25 kills. 500 damage value, and this is the problem for the little skinky. He is very good in the majority of matchups, and the Dwarfs have basically no counter to him, but they don't need one. Simply let him shoot at you all day. He's not really going to do too much damage, and a little bit struggly for Oxyotl, but he stayed alive, and that was the main thing. Maybe that's why 4Poland wanted to trial him today. 367 damage value isn't insane on the Skink Priest, only one Flock of Doom coming in, I think, but the Curse was such a nice spell. Panton Penetrable Pelt also is why I think the Skink Priest of Beast is by far the better Skink Priest at the moment, at least compared to the Heavens Casters. The little Skink cohorts, didn't get the best damage value. This unit did, though, 500, but they're there just to distract, harass, saturate on top of those ogres, and help their larger brothers out. The Red Crested Skinks performed absolutely amazing. I really do think, though their poison's been weakened, as has all poison across the board, the points reduction they got to counteract that has actually made them even more powerful. And I very often now, with my Lizardmen forces, been bringing at least 4 to 5 units of these guys. They are so powerful. Even the cohort of Sotek, 935 damage value, and across the board, all of them doing really well. A highlight, of course, is this unit in the middle, 99 kills and 822 damage value. As for the big old ogres with dual weapons, let's see how they performed. My god, that is some disgusting damage value. 1,207 on this unit with 91 kills as well. Just shy of 8,000 damage dealt. 710 on this second unit. 1,350 and 94 kills. That unit as well absolutely obliterated the Dwarfs. But this one, a little bit more sad with only 148. Both the arcs paid for themselves. They're about 1,000 gold, I believe. 1,018 damage value on this one, which did unfortunately go down to the biting blade of Grombrindal. The other one, 1,276 with 56 kills. Razorn Hunter Packs, only 771 damage value, but were relatively crucial in not only absorbing a lot of the enemy presence and firepower, but whittling down the Norglin's Ironbreakers in the end game. As for Chad Forik, it can be a pretty tough matchup coming up against the Dino boys now. I think it is relatively even, but with ogres in the mix, Lizardmen have a bucket ton of options. 800 damage value on the White Dwarf, only 152 though on the triple silver chevron miners. They certainly had those chevrons before the battle and not during. The other miners as well struggling to pay for themselves, being overwhelmed too quickly by the ogres. Slayers didn't have quite as good a day as I thought they did. 492 and 822 damage value is certainly respectable, but nothing out of this world. 960 though on Norglin's Ironbreakers. 112 kills, been a real solid stalwart bodyguard for the White Dwarf himself. As for the range contingent, again, really struggling. Buckman Rangers are quite a cool pick here, but no one paying for themselves simply due to the power of the rush that came in from the ogres. The Lizardmen did lose a lot of forces though towards the end, but they had just enough left in the tank to seal the deal. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Until next time, peace, peace. And as always, stay awesome.